So with that, I'll open it up to anybody that wants to make any comments about the allowing mixed use commercial residential dwellings and apartments as accessories to businesses in the B2 general business district. As I recall, the mixed uses are allowed in central business district and B1, but not B2.
And we're just getting to the realities that are already on the ground.
Right,
So
and really,
getting the code with that.
there are several mixed uses in the B2 district already.
B2 is much larger than B1, right? I just pulled out my map.
I'm not sure, Mike.
There's 3 sections of them. South
B2,
and the east, so I'm west and up in the north.
I see that all 281 is B2 and up by Clinton and 281 is B2 and so
where's the B1?
B1 is
In your office, right?
It's a
swampy area by the town yard is village yard.
Okay,
I think Pat's gonna get the big zoning board.
okay.
So take a look.
And,
Turkey Road, right?
Yerke Ave,
Turkey Ave.
Yeah, Turkey and Prospect. You got one of these over there, you know? I can look at mine.
yeah,
Pat went to get the big one.
Huh?
Pat went to get the big one out of the office.
B2 is along the river by ID Booth there, across from my, ID Booth is industrial across the way, is B2. So, most of the area, B1 is over this, thing.
Yes.
No, it's a B.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
it is. That's
It is.
B1, right? It points to that little corner lot.
Yeah, right.
Does that help?
Glassmeat is B1, B2 is,
So the blue areas are B2, is that correct?
yes, yeah.
Yes. And what's the purple area?
Central Business District.
That's right downtown.
It's already permitted there, so this is just catching up to and the CBD now.
Right.
And what's being allowed, proposed to be allowed is to allow multiple family dwellings, 2, 3, just like in the residential R2 or something, right? Multiple, or is it multiple family, is that more than 2 family? Is that what, how big is the multiple family? What's the definition of that? Is that 3, 4, 5?
You got the book.
I don't mind taking this question if you don't mind, because I want to kind of point the board's attention to a few different areas that we'd love comments on. First, the answer to your question is it's anything over a single family house, so 2 family, 3 family, 4 family and above. But there's actually 3 separate uses that this law, as currently drafted, and we're just in the comment stage here, allows. It's both for multifamily dwellings, so those dwellings we just talked about, more than a single family house, but then also it allows for mixed use and then apartments as accessories to business. So the mixed use would be, the most common one is like a retail on the first floor and then apartments maybe on the second or third floor. And then the other potential use could be a business as a storefront in one separate building, and then maybe an accessory apartment in the back or something like that. So those are the 3 potential changes to what we have for zoning already. So there's 3 different types of things, and maybe the Board of Trustees wants to do all 3 or just one of the 3 or none of the 3, but that's really what the 3 subject areas that we'd love comments on, given your board's expertise and knowledge.
The mixed use is the prime motivator, commercial on the bottom, housing on top. That's something
So-
I would like to promote.
So would there be like an opportunity to limit how many apartments are in a multi-family or a multi-dwelling unit?
Sure, yeah, I think we could, specify size and whatnot and the type of structure, sure, that could be a comment that could be passed on the board to be written into the law, definitely.
I mean, because if you look at those areas, they're ripe for development.
Sure, that's what I'm saying, sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I'm not sure that, it would behoove the village to allow multifamily in the B2 district, just as a multifamily. Yeah, because you've designated that for businesses, not for residential. And if you're designated for businesses mainly with residential to be auxiliary or ancillary uses, then that's one thing. But if you start bringing in a lot of residential, and now you run the risk of having people say, gee, there's too much business here. This is my residence. And I want quiet. I don't want business activity. I think that's
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point, though. So I mean, otherwise some developer could come in and want to put a 6-unit house right in a B2 business district. Doesn't make any sense. So I think the mixed use makes sense, but I don't think that
Yeah, that's a valid critique. I think what the village wants to promote is the building that's at 23 South Main. Good commercial, good housing stock on top.
which is allowed in the CBD now anyway.
Right, exactly.
right. But in the B2 district, let's say a B2 is, it's a lot of South Main Street, right? From,
Well,
It is a lot of South Main Street, and my biggest concern would be that even with a mixed use, someone could put in, a single office space and then have the rest as apartments and be like, well, it's my business office.
right.
The only thing I might add though is, again, there are already existing non-conforming structures, i.e. multifamily homes in all 3 B2 zones. So
Yeah.
that's where they're already there. They're not gonna go anywhere.
Right, but we're trying to plan for the future.
Right.
So where the gun shop is, the unshop there, that's B2. So somebody could tear that down and put commercial space on the bottom, combine it with it, where that ice cream place is, and put up a whole unit like the one you mentioned before, like Yemen has downtown.
Right. Some of the thoughts for that building is the historical society, perhaps on the bottom, and then a workspace on top. So not even any housing in that way. But that's an idea that's been bandied about.
I mean, I guess you could also put a limit if you did. maybe-
Dan, is that you talking?
That was me talking, yes.
Thank you.
But you don't have to, my comments are irrelevant to the discussion.
I'm not putting them in, but I wanted to know whose voice it was.
Understood.
Yeah, the gun room is the first one in the B2 as you go south.
Yeah, so you can just visualize it with the ice cream parlor in there. You could buy those 2 properties and put up a pretty big operation there. So, well, I know we've had 6 units in there on top of 2 stores. Is that bad or not?
I don't know, being that it's, I don't know, without looking at the square footage requirements of the lot and setbacks, you might not be able to do a lot with that. Even if you combine those 2 lots.
Yeah, but they go back all the way to the river, I think. Might be more land there than you think.
Yeah, I agree with you. There also, a lot of that land is not usable. You can't fill it in. You can't fill it in to make parking, but that doesn't stop people either. As we all know. But I think that just from my standpoint, the mixed use with the residential being an auxiliary use or a minor use of the property and the business being the major use, that's what we would look to do. But not have multifamily residential bumped into there as a use.
This, the unit building, what is it, 23,
Yes,
Sorry, for yourself.
23 South Main?
Yeah, and that's what a 6-unit apartment building.
How many
I
units?
believe it's 6 units.
6 units on top of 2 businesses, right?
right.
Right now, just one.
One.
So-
So is that bad? Somebody could come in there with a 3-story building and do that. So I mean, anyway, that's what we're telling.
Well, but that's in a central business district where,
No, I mean,
Well-
you're right.
where a whole lot of limitations are waived. You probably wouldn't be able to do that without waiving the requirements in an R,
This
in a
B2.
B2.
I didn't mean is it bad for that, and then is that kind of model bad for this site here or some other sites like that?
My personal opinion is it would be bad for this site because the goal for this site is to keep businesses in there. And if you economically can't make it work, which is apparently the particular case with, and we shouldn't be zoning for just one person, but with the circus house, probably can't make it work with just one tenant on the main floor. And to make it handicap accessible to the second floor is definitely not economically feasible unless you got a lot of money to buy elevator with.
Which probably would require 6 units or something like that, substantial.
That's just, I think if the village board were to just say, okay, we'll allow and somehow restrict how much residential you can have in a
Mixed use.
in a mixed use business. It can't be 75% residential and 25% business.
Probably missed to put Kevin on the spot, but he may know the number of multi-units and how many of those residential buildings. We could certainly do an inventory. I have not done that yet. We could do an inventory and we could have it ready to go for the village board and you folks later on. Hey, Kevin?
Is he here?
Yeah, he's on the phone.
Yes,
Do you know, would you happen to know those multi-units, like how many per building of units that they have in those existing structures? Just offhand,
which structures are you referring to, Dan?
multifamily residential units in the B2s that already exist?
In the B2 that already exist? I do not know the answer to that. Most of our multifamilies are in the residential district. And we have, in the central business district, obviously, we've got a bunch of multifamily there, but in the B2, I can't answer that.
What are you thinking? Dan?
You know, and what I'm thinking also now is that there's actually, I mean, there's maybe, I can think of there's a duplex, I know in 281, there's also some single family homes. One that was right by that, a couple right by the proposed Dollar General, there's single family homes in those
There's
districts.
2 or 3 in a row there.
Yeah, so there's those kind of non-conforming structures as well.
Right, but your goal is, you bring that up, non-conforming uses, this law is to try to get them to be conforming, right?
No, well, they're just they will exist, and so
Continue to
it's
exist,
those
not-
laws to reflect the model of central business district, but more importantly to, again, mixed use, having decent housing stock up top and a decent commercial unit on the bottom.
Well, the Dollar General site is a good one with that house, somebody could have come. Buy that whole lot with that house and put up a pretty big. Built a commercial building with housing. Love it. Quite a few units.
On South Main, there are just south of the circus house, there are 1 or 2 buildings in there. I think one is a 1-family, the other one I think is a 2-family.
I think you're right.
And then there's the used car lot. And then
That's
the rest of it's the village.
Yeah, those are very narrow lots.
Right.
That could be a problem.
But-
Self-limiting there.
Well, 281 being B2 from from Center Street, from Cayuga Street north. And plus Burn Dairy. on the south end, but
There'd be quite a few sites along that 281 corridor,
yeah,
B2, that you could do something.
right. That eventually could be. Now that B2, that goes all the way to. It goes all the way to Clinton, doesn't it?
Mhm.
No, not according to that.
No. No?
No.
Well,
Will that be one?
okay, it's just the
It's not by
triangle
James
between,
Street.
between Prospect and Clinton is B2. And then across the street from, where,
Super cream.
Super
Origins.
Cream, Super Cream Origins in the big empty field out in back, but I thought the empty field out in back was, PDD.
Might be.
Might be now.
I think, yeah, I think that,
We revised that.
seems like, see, we were talking, Dan?
A big blue area up there.
Big blue area,
Right
right
there,
there.
right there, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no,
that's-
that's,
That's that
right
one,
there,
yeah.
that one there.
B2. That's B2. It's not.
It's B2, but I thought he got that zone for PDD.
I thought so.
Down here.
Yeah, that one, no. The frontage was B2, but I thought that there was a narrow strip of land, a narrow 50-foot right of way that went, or not right of way, actually a 50-foot strip that goes to the lot out and back.
Yep.
And that, I think, I thought that,
It's never been given to the county, so I haven't seen anything to that effect.
So I don't know if it'd be possible, at this moment, but what I've used, and I don't know if I've specifically spoken to you guys about this, is there's a GIS viewer that Cortland County runs, that has an updated zoning map that gets updated pretty frequently. I think it would be a good idea to get all the board members, an updated zoning map. I know the one that.
The map that's in front of them, Dante, was just printed within the last 3 months.
Okay, because there are two PDDs right in that district that the chair was talking about. There's a PDD-R and a PDD-C right behind the E2 district on 281.
Yep, they're reflected on the map.
Oh, okay. Yeah, good.
okay,
They're the orange ones on the map.
yeah, but I was, it just seemed like when we were looking at, that development that Tim Buell had done work on and, Ken DeMunn. And I thought he had that changed to a PDD instead of a B2. But we can look in the records and see if it was changed and never reflected.
Really, so I printed this
Are
map.
you talking about the project near the park? What project are you talking about?
You know about the project behind Super Cream?
Yeah, so there is a PDD-R there and a PDD-C there. Is that?
That was there, you were talking up top. It's right here.
Well, there's the one that's on Hudson Street, PDDR, that surrounds Pete McMahon's house. And it goes from Hudson Street down to the back of Burgett Drive.
Right.
But also, Dante, are you looking at the county map?
I am, yeah.
Okay, on Northwest Street, Route 281,
Sure.
Origins. And then Super Cream are on 281. Behind Super Cream, our map shows it as B2. But I was,
Oh, directly behind the Super Cream is B2, but then directly behind that, there are two PDDs, one PDD-R for residential and then one for commercial. Looks like it's owned by Speedway. It's a tax map ending in 01.0100. It kind of abuts Route 90, but not quite.
no, well, the one that, there is one that hits Route. No, it doesn't hit Route 90 yet. No, those aren't the ones we're talking about.
He's talking north, Dante, north up by Clinton 41.
Oh, no, yeah, those haven't, I don't have anything about that.
Right. I don't think that might have been discussed, but again, that's never come across my desk that that's what they are.
Yeah, no, we haven't considered any of those.
But when we were considering that for site plan review, the one came in and he wanted to build a couple of buildings in there. And
Well,
it just,
it might have been a proposal that never got to the village to actually,
okay,
approve it,
right,
but it's not on the map. In any case, it's a little off the subject of whether,
well, there's,
what we want to do in
Well-
what we want to recommend for B2, how much of a residential allowance do we want to let happen in B2s?
well, again,
Mixed use.
that's a B2 and I don't know if, or is that much residential allowed in a B2? Were we looking at something that wasn't even allowed?
Oh, so that's a good point. So
That's why I'm
That's
asking,
a big B2 area right there that we
Yes.
would now allow commercial in there, which we never would have thought was,
right,
what was the thinking of going back with B2 behind Super Cream or that whole area? Oh, that used to be that a nursery back
that was
there.
all part of,
The nursery, that,
Slim Rinaldi's nursery.
All is nursery.
Yeah,
well, I mean, is that a bad place to have B2 activities? And visualizing it would be multi-use, somebody could put some, a little development in there that has some shops, I can't imagine, or some kind of commercial, professional office buildings with some housing on top. That's what we would be suggesting could happen. And the biggest concern is that it's mostly residential and only one shop. And that wouldn't be a real problem back there.
except that is if it were not B2, if you had it for residential, it'd be a nice piece to develop. And we're looking for residential development in the village.
So that your recommendation might be, or ours, that we suggest to the village, take that out of B2 and turn it into residential.
Some sort of either PDDR or
Yeah,
something along that line.
so I would support the idea that we recommend to the village board that they should look at that particular site. How do we classify that site? How do we identify what we're talking about? It's the,
It's
the
the
northern-
Demon, it's the Demon,
Yeah,
what's
another
commonly
Demon.
known as the Demon site.
because he has the other one up on.
Yeah, well, the Demon 281 site behind Super Cream.
Right, okay. We question whether that should remain as a B2 and not be classified residential. Or if it was like, if you thought of it as we're going now, it's a multi-use, so why don't we let a developer come back with a proposal that has some residential and some commercial?
Well, no matter what happens there, there are issues with ingress and egress on that site. It's a very difficult
Yeah.
site. But,
So-
anyway, we are off the track
Yeah,
and I,
So,
but again, it is in our thinking is, if we're gonna allow B2, and that runs from,
so I think it was the mix that we were concerned about. That Jessica brought up that,
right,
how much residential compared to business. I don't know, do we really care?
yes,
Yeah,
we do.
yeah.
You don't want that much residential. in
I'm not gonna speak for everybody else, but yes, I do, because, yeah. I mean, I just, my biggest concern would be this B2 district along the river. Like, I know from word of mouth that there's some plans for that area, and that's kind of the corridor into Homer.
Right,
So what do we want that to look like?
So would it be better that there was mixed use in there? Of any amount
I
of
think-
residential?
I think mixed use would be great, but we also want to be able to have businesses there and not have apartments clogging up the area. I shouldn't use that because.
No, I'm trying to get it to visualize, so I mean, so on the ground floor, there would be, I don't know if it has to be on the ground floor, but there would be commercial or professional space, and then above it would be some residential, so
the other thing
would
is
that
that,
be bad? I mean,
yeah, the other thing is it doesn't have to be all part of the same building.
that could be too.
There was some talk about you could put a building
in the front.
in back of you have the commercial front and you could have a residential out in back, which that could even work with the circus house. You could have, if you could build close enough to the river, but, probably not.
Probably not.
But, when you get north of the 81 entrance ramp, you got commercial construction or complete construction has 2 parcels. And then you got Little Italy has 1 parcel. And then DM3 owns the next 2.
3, but didn't they buy the gun room too?
Well, they own they got 2.
The hot dogs shack, the
Ice cream.
ice cream shack
They're all hot dog and ice cream.
are one,
That's 1 parcel.
and then the gun room.
Done, you know.
And didn't the glass place across the street just sell too? Who'd that go to?
That's Bishop Building, what, from what I heard. But that's, you know, and again.
So if we take out the residential allowance, just residential in this B2, we're just talking about mixed uses. And I don't know, if we have should make a recommendation about the percentage of residential to commercial in these mixed uses. I mean, I can visualize all kinds of developments that are fine, even if there was 75% residential and 25% business. You know, I'm not sure it'd be a problem in those areas. So
Well, it defeats the spirit of
business,
having businesses in that area.
If there's more residential than business.
yeah,
Right,
but for this town, is that really a problem? I mean, if we came up that where the gun room is in those commercial, the whole with pizza places, and before that, if that all turned into a mixed use place, is that a problem? If it was 75% residential? I mean, it's residential.
Depends where it is. Like something that should always have to come to the board, I don't know.
It would be in a
Yeah.
site plan, it would come to the
Right.
board, but in terms of codifying or telling the village board that they have to codify that it's a 75-25 or 50-50, I'm not sure it's necessary, right? The worst case is that it's mostly residential in those places. If somebody's concerned about that, I don't know what the concern is if it were mostly residential. Is there, I mean, this is a residential community, so you come into town and you've got these nice new building.
They look
residential-
nice.
Residential buildings in there, mixed in with some commercial could be nice.
No, I don't have a problem with that. I guess as long as the residential. What are the requirements for residential? In a residential or an R2, as far as square footage, if you're gonna allow it, you've got to then codify what the parameters are for your lot coverage, and impervious materials,
Well, that's a good
ingress,
point.
egress. Just saying we're gonna allow it. This board probably, well, maybe it will. I probably won't see it on this board, the development of things like that, but
Sure, you could,
the board's gonna have to have some guidance as to,
right, that's excellent, excellent. I agree. So this is unique, right, to the code here, that residential is controlled on the R1 or R2, right?
right,
But this residential has no controls on it.
correct.
You're right. So you're suggesting, we suggest to the village board that this mixed residential use type thing has, it's looked into is how you control the residential aspect of it, parking, setbacks, or whatever, to make it a nice place.
We've already got controls as far as the business aspects of it. In the code, it's a B2, so business you can do thus with this much area and this much frontage, this much setback. Those just automatically, they automatically cover a business, commercial or business residential project. Dante, do you have a sense of that?
Yeah, and actually in the B2 district, there are setbacks and lot line requirements that apply to these things. And I forgot who made the point because you guys are having a really good discussion, but all of these uses would be subject to site plan review. So there wouldn't be just a rubber stamp based on that. There would still be a site plan review process, through the planning board, through your, this planning board and the county planning board, for any of those proposed uses.
I think it'd be good for this discussion to think of what is controlled in a residential R1, R2. That we see that this could fall through the cracks if it wasn't spelled out here. I'm trying to grope with that. I don't know, you have a driveway, you have there's R1 and 2 say that you have to have a driveway. Parking for these units, one per, I don't know, per house. What kind of things come to mind that you would think that the board would have to look into as to how to structure the residential aspect of a multi-purpose, multi-use facility? What would they be?
Well, in the business aspect, we've got requirements for
Yeah.
parking spaces for cars. And then you're gonna have to have 2 per living unit, as I recall, for residential. You have 2 parking spaces.
Right, I don't think the residential requirements that are spelled out for an R1, R2 would be automatically in this in a B2, would they?
I don't know.
A residential, a new residential in a B2, they wouldn't just carry over. You'd have to say that you have to create them.
Right.
So what we would suggest to the board, I think, that it has to be looked into as to the regulations of how residential is going to be used in a B2,
Right.
in a mixed use situation.
Multiple family dwellings needs to be removed.
Right.
Yeah.
Mixed use commercial and residential dwellings and accessory apartments, and that's it. Multiple family dwellings need to be eliminated in all this wording.
Good summary, Mike.
You've got several places that it's in there, you just need to.
So if you guys are getting ready to make a recommendation, it'd be helpful to kind of make a list of those that we could, send along for consideration. It sounds like you have one that Mike just went over, but if there are others, it'd be nice to kind of flush them out and make sure, it doesn't necessarily, majority approval on the board if they're just recommendations, but if somebody has a specific one, it might be good to spell it out, get some comments from the board and kind of go through it that way.
I think the one that we agree on is the one that was just stated, that we don't accept multiple family dwellings in a B2.
That's our biggest recommendation.
And that the residential part needs to have established guidelines for
Right.
size, like square
Size.
footage, size, parking spaces, garbage. Like who's responsible for that?
Guidelines,
yeah.
basically.
Where green space, like I think if you're gonna have a residential, you're gonna have to have a certain amount of green space for a residential. Can't just be all blacktop.
Got that, Joan?
Oh, she's on
You're
mute.
muted.
You're on mute.
It's very confusing to me because I'm not familiar with it. I took down some recommendations that you said in the beginning was look at the site behind the Super Cream. Mike, I think, said that. And how much residential compared to business? Percent of residential compared to commercial. Dante said all housing is subject to a site plan review. Residents need established guidelines. Residential needs established guidelines. And there should be green space for residential.
I don't know, I think our recommendation can be made much simpler than all those things, like the one that you talked about behind Super Cream. It was just discussion. I think the recommendation comes down to 2 very specific things. One is we do not think it's positive to have only residential in a B2. And the other one is that, in a mixed use of commercial and residential, that the, how do you put it? The controls have to be established for how the residential is to be applied in terms of open space, green space, parking. I would even add egress to the apartments, you know, all kinds of things, square footage. So I just think we have two recommendations. And keep it simple, am I right?
Yes.
You know, authorizing mixed-use commercial and residential dwellings and accessory apartments in the B2 district. And then apply the R2 standards for residential in the B2 district.
Say that again, Don, apply R2 what?
Apply the R2 residential standards
Yeah,
to the B2 district residences.
If possible.
Yeah, if possible, you know.
Yeah.
It may not be possible. Therefore, multi-family dwellings may not be approved in the law, but the ones that are out there that are already non-conforming, they would just be existed and grandfathered in.
That, I think that pretty much covers it.
Right, time to go to the easy one.
Pardon?
No
Time to
need.
go to the easy one. Time to go to the easy one.
Oh, the easy one, yes. Okay,
I don't think this is gonna be easy.
oh, this is gonna be simple. No,
In the long term,
no,
done.
no. I'm just kidding. There's, I don't know how many of you have saw the display outside tonight of the LED sign.
Yeah.
I saw it.
You see it?
I saw it.
I'll take a look.
It's gone.
Oh,
No, I gotta get it.
You got a video?
No, I actually have videos of one of Ithaca High School, which is not maybe necessary to bring up. But because it's more animated and stuff like that, but big like the one that you would have seen here. This one here is. It was on airplane mode, was it? I can't see it here. This one is, how big was the one out there?
I think it was
It's bigger than-
4x8.
4x8, that's 32 square feet. The one over there proposing is 24 square feet. So.
Oh, boy. I saw
It's
it.
on television. I saw it. I have mixed feelings about it.
That's bad.
But towards the end, I saw it,
Yeah.
you took the nits down to 100, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is actually dimmed down, so that.
Oh, wow.
This is 100, and just go up to 500, I think, with brightness. But it was interesting, Victor Siegel pushed it, just put up some letters. Actually, when we came out, there was some letters and the emblem of the Homer Village, you know, which is multicolored little
Mhm.
thing. And he just thought that, just to see what a signboard is, like we have signboards now, just letters on a background.
Mhm.
And he made up one right then and there, and it's not in your face like that. It's just black letters on white or white letters on black. And I asked them if we could specify or we codify it, that it would be parchment colors, you know, it would give a palette of a few colors of just letters on a background or back, you know, stuff like that. So one could. So that I'm not, they're just not in a position like some are, nothing like this whatsoever. I can visualize something that are really subdued kinds of signs, like what I just described, just letters. Like it is what the American Legion has now, but it need to be quieter than that because it's not the big white sign with little black letters on it. It would be a sign that says the next activity. And also we wrote, this is written with based upon this model from Baldwinsville. It says a 10-second change and this thing talks about 8 seconds change from one message to the other in a business district and 12 seconds in a residential. There's no reason we couldn't have it 30 seconds, if it's just a sign. And then it's not like bowling and changing all the time. I mean, you can have a static sign like the American Legion has now, or give them a choice that, okay, so it can change in some period of time, but it's nothing animated like rolling like that. So there are a lot of things we could do to modify it.
Yeah,
First, I just want to say that my husband is the chair of the trustees of the church, so I don't know if I know that that sign caused many issues, so I don't know if I should be, if you guys are comfortable with me in this conversation.
sure, you got experience.
It's not even voting on it.
Okay, I worked it out. I just, full disclosure, I don't want anyone.
I think it's tacky.
Come back and
I
say
think it's
anything.
historical at all.
Which one now?
The sign you just showed.
Oh, no, that would, no, so what the people are pushing the signs, the vendor and let's say the Family Health Network people, they would say, well, okay, it's not good for the street right here, but it's, you might have a special district for like on 281 where you could have that. And then we throw out one more thing right away at that, even if you did that, or whatever we do. Proliferation is the problem, because if you give it the right to one person.
Yeah.
Everybody can have it. So
Everybody
right now, I was driving down like on this thing, it's excluded from the CBD now, just as B1 and B2. But let's say in the CBD, like every store like you had, everybody could have some sign outside. So then you say, okay, well, where are the really important ones? It's the American Legion, it's the Center for the Arts. It's the school, would love to have one, every school, then every church. And that the laws that's written now does say churches and schools. It doesn't say, institutions like the Center for the Arts. The Center for the Arts really could use something. So we would have to write that, and yet you couldn't give it to one church and not another church, so every
Right.
church could have one.
I'm fine with the church one because it kind of sets back, but I don't think we need that. And I think the Center for the Arts sign is fine. You can go out there and change it each week, whatever it is. I think we need to realize that we're a Norman Rockwell town.
Yeah.
And we need to keep it historical. I think that's just tacky Jackie.
Right, well, the only argument I would make is that would be what I'm suggesting, that first we could reduce the size, maybe that's a thing, but the colors. That's
Yeah.
what makes it tacky.
I mean,
I
people
would
still
make-
find my store with my old fashioned sign.
Right,
that's
well,
what
this
needs
is
to-
appropriate for downtown, but things like the firehouse has announcements, the American Legion does, the Center for the Arts does. These are ways of communicating with the traffic, which is substantial, letting them know what's going on in these public institutions, and I think a sign can be, the law could be codified so that very simple signs could be made that basically look just like the signs.
Just
that
like
exist now.
the standard, the conventional signs that we have,
Same thing, except the
Except that
people
they're-
inside could.
they're using. modern-
Otherwise it'll look like Times Square, which is great for New York City, but we're not New York City.
That's my visual when you're saying
Lit up and
the VFW, which is right across the street from the Center of the Arts, which is right next door to the, you know what I mean, to the fire station. And then you can't tell me that the Center of the Arts won't put one on that white church when they have the white, I mean, pretty soon we're gonna have a cowboy on
Lovely.
top of the steeple of the Homer Congregational
Yeah.
Church. Boy, and this, I mean, it's gonna
Look like
sound like
Broadway,
Viva Las
yeah.
Vegas or
Well,
something.
the three you mentioned, except the town with the white church, do already have signs. And so the question is this in fact, can I design a sign that's an upgrade to those? Electronic board sign, can it be an upgrade? Nice, more elegant,
Yeah, one
more
of
elegant. Those are pretty tacky, with the big white, that glaring stuff in there. And the cheap letters that are on there. If we had controlled the illumination and we controlled the palette. You could, I actually was concerned when I thought of this, that if we control it too much, they all look the same, and that would be pretty
that
tacky.
too.
But if you could have a palette of pastels and backgrounds. And let them pick the font that they want, but with the rotation being very static, 30 seconds.
I
or
thought
more.
that the church has rules. I thought that there can only be certain colors on that sign and they can never rotate. And they can never blink, they can never,
The one for the church.
for the church, there is rules for that I thought were in all of that.
It's all in this.
So, I mean, what you're saying is kind of already in there, because I don't think that it can be anything
all in
besides
there.
like green or white or something like
The
that.
church sign, sorry, is not in code at all, so that was just an exception. So there's no actual law now stating that whatever was talked about at the time.
That was basically an agreement between, I believe, the village board and the church to allow that
Okay.
without, I don't think the planning board had any input on that at all. It was just, there were a lot of things that were just negotiated, but, I agree with Mike on a lot of the possibilities you can do. And one other thing is that, the content of the sign, we can't legislate content. That's a First Amendment right, but we have already identified that, you can't advertise anything that's not on premises. And that's one of the things that Family Health Network wants to do, is they don't do anything there except administrative.
Mhm.
And they want to put up flu shots, vaccines, and you know, or whatever. We need help over in Upper Tupper Township or someplace. That does not make it an on-site sign.
It's a billboard.
It's a billboard,
Yeah.
basically. Now, what I would envision, and I have talked with Ty Marshall, that what he has in mind is they've got the brick monument out front that the Berry family donated. And in the center of that, there's a small electrically lit sign. His vision is to take that out and put an LED sign in there that he could then put his upcoming events on as they're coming, and take the big one down. And I know what you said about going out and change the letters, but Ty's argument is that in the winter, when there's snow 2.5 feet on the ground and it's 20 degrees out, and he doesn't really want to be out there changing letters.
So I designed that sign, and that was the best we could do at that time, and there was no option to do electronic one anyway. But that is a big piece of plexiglass covering the whole thing. You gotta pick that up and put that on the ground, then you gotta go change the letters. You gotta go find the letters. It's really very labor intensive
I
besides.
have
being
one
a
in my
company.
window.
Yeah,
I used to do it.
yeah, it's a little thing, it's not.
Yeah.
If it's in your window.
It's a big thing, it's time consuming, and finding volunteers to do it, or Ty having to go out and do it is not great. And I can see a cleaner looking, by the way, I didn't know that he'd want to move into that little thing, which I personally think is not a good idea.
I don't think it's,
And nobody's gonna see that thing at all there,
but if you were to build re-establish another brick monument,
yeah.
or even a nice wood frame like the church has
Yeah.
done with theirs, if you build it into a monument, so that it's not just stuck out there, it becomes a lot more palatable.
Yeah,
And the fact that you can now change it depending upon the needs or demands of the time without a lot of effort.
right, but the concern is that it looks like that's the one that we saw out here, if you don't codify the restrictions of, and my wife says, oh, you can't do that, you can't, somebody's gonna, since they freely can go and do anything they want, they'll change it, then who's going to enforce it? Well, I'm saying that Kevin would go out there and say, that's not within these parameters, that's in the law here, the law parameters are very, very strict. I mean, you can use any font you want, but you're gonna, maybe, I'm just making this up, but you have to use this palette. And it doesn't allow this kind of imagery that these things have.
I think we eliminate the problem and don't do it at all.
Well, that's what I would say, but I think it's a plus, actually, in my opinion, can be a plus.
Well, maybe not do it at all, then you go back to what the fire department does have as a beat up rusty plastic sign.
Yeah, pretty good.
And the sign that the Legion has, which is,
People get a nice wooden one, they just make the new, welcome to Homer with the beautiful gold, and
that faded and you can't read.
I can read on 90.
I can't read the signs coming into town.
Those.
The green is too dark.
No, the gold
But
isn't bright
gold is
enough.
not standing out.
The gold.
Okay.
Well, anyway, it's not really.
Yeah,
it's not
you
khaki.
digress.
number.
I think we're gonna put lights on those signs anyway, so. I
But
think that's.
even with lights, they,
There's gotta be a classier way.
So what
So-
happens to the Center for the Arts if the lights have to go out at 9 o'clock and they have a show going on?
Okay,
Let's just go out?
right, so that's, I questioned that. I thought it was too restrictive, 9 to, 6.
Really? Well, if you're sitting, if you live there and you have and it's shining in your freaking living room, you might
Well,
want, you might not
Right,
want
but
that.
you know, that sign is outside lit, against the sign, illuminated sign, and those lights are more in your face than a panel would be,
Disagree.
not a white panel.
In a panel that can be controlled, the dimming and whatnot can be controlled. So you can restrict
Oh, yeah.
the brightness at a certain time.
So the one
I mean,
outside,
it's written right in this law, if you read it. It
Right.
talks about,
the brightness of an electronic sign shall not exceed 0.3 foot candles above ambient light as measured using the foot candle meter at a predetermined distance. That's what they use. But there's also, the vendor was talking about, you know, Dan, what it's
Nits.
on- what,
Nits,
yeah, it was down to 100.
that's the lowest that sign can go. is
Oh, the lowest
100
you
nits.
can go?
Not sure, there may be other signs that can, I don't know.
Yeah. So we could specify that too. We would have to actually see these signs. They'd have to come back and mock it up for us.
And I guess I just feel like the one at church is low to the ground, right? So the one at Center for the Arts, if I live at the Robidoux, that thing is gonna be. It's not gonna be low to the ground like that, right? Or you're
No,
just saying-
there's, in here, there's controls that can't be more than, but the base can't be more than 12 inches off the ground.
I feel like it's just gonna create
And then-
more problems. You're gonna be monitoring, you know,
What we,
poor Kevin.
well, I know that's what Pat said, but I don't know about Kevin, if you're too worried about getting a lot of calls from this sign is not conforming or not. I know.
I think you're losing the historic home feel.
It wouldn't change in downtown. This would be where there are
I
existing
mean, maybe for
signs.
downtown Portland, gonna do it there, but,
No, it wouldn't affect.
no, I know, but I'm
CBD
saying,
here. I mean, it's a post office and your whole strip there,
Mhm.
all the way up to McNeil Building, all that stuff wouldn't be affected if it's not allowed in the CBD,
right. I don't think it should-
which it isn't right now.
Right.
So it's only in B1 and B2. Which we just talked about where those are. So, just to give an example, up in that Clinton and the West Street there where Super Cream is the one that's there. She might have a sign there now, I don't know, some kind, she could put one up. Origins could put one up.
Mhm.
Everybody could put one up, the proliferation is a problem. But then, but everybody.
but not everybody is going to.
That's true, and everybody could put up a sign of some sort right now, right?
you can have a sign, that's,
But if these are effective ways ways of communicating what you're selling in your business, there might be a run on them. So that's why I'm saying a run on, if it was like these neon signs that were like quote unquote neon signs that we saw on the truck, it would look like Las Vegas and that would be.
Yeah, that I'm afraid of.
That's out of the question.
Mhm.
Yeah, what
Trying to
we
get
saw in
you
the
to see
parking
that
lot
there's some
today
kind of
was-
Signs that.
I don't see the beauty in it.
well, yeah, but you can restrict the type of. No animation, you can't have mice running across the thing, you know, when it changes, the whole board changes at once. You don't have a wipe across.
That's all in here.
You know, and again,
I'm not opposed to what you were proposing with the guidelines for the colors and the, you know,
These could look like historic signs. I mean, they could be all parchment looking.
it would be interesting to see some mock-ups.
Yeah. Right, so we would recommend to the board, we're not ready for this, Joan, to say this now, but the recommendation could be that we get them to go with this restricted palette and to convince the community that they actually produce some samples. And if the vendor would be willing to come down and mock those up. He mentioned, I asked him to show us one of those, he couldn't, on the fly, make it look like that, he'd say you have to go inside and work it up, so that's what they.
It can be done.
Can be
the Whole thing, yeah.
And they also mentioned the height thing. I don't know that, I think I wrote here that is, I don't know if there's a height limitation. No requirement to be below a certain height. And it has to be freestanding. But, and I said, well, in my head, I said, we can put it on, somebody puts it up on a balcony, but it says no roof. So I think it also says it has to be, the base has to be within 12 inches of the ground. And yes, that's the built-in height limitation. It's, well, except if you have a tall vertical one, you could, because it's 24 square feet. We don't establish the proportion of it, right? So it doesn't have to be 3 by 8, 3 by 6. It could be 6 by 3 and then be a vertical. It's kind of stupid because the words you'd have to write.
So no larger than,
It says no larger than, and we can change that and recommend that we change it, but it's 24. And it can be on both sides
12 square feet per side.
of 12 square feet. Oh,
24
I keep making a
square
mistake.
total.
That's 3 by 4, well, 3 by 4. okay.
Yeah, 3 by 4, 12
Yeah.
square feet per side, 2 sides, 24 square feet.
Yeah,
max.
yeah. So 3 by 4 is not very big.
And I just think the time, I'm sorry, what's good for everybody else is good for the Center for the Arts. So if the lights are out at 9, the lights are out at 9. I think we need to be respectful for, if this goes through, that the fact that there are people who live in houses
Yeah.
who, you know what, they have a right, that to me, I just get so perturbed with that because, you know, we're living in the middle of this
Right.
and that's not fair to us.
No,
So I'm just saying that if you're gonna have all these lights up and they're going all the way down, you know, until we get to Main Street, if it's 9 o'clock when they're off, then it's 9 o'clock when they're off. I mean, kids have big, I mean,
And they,
pay these kids, it's ridiculous. That to me is ridiculous. So to say that, oh, let's just make this because Center of the Arts might have a show at 10:30. Well, that's,
Then get out there and put your little sign up.
then put out a different sign. I don't know.
is that sign, the center for the arts sign, is that lit now, the one with the
I don't think
chair?
they control those signs now.
No, but I mean, is that sign lit?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
lights on it.
Right, fine. We can
Okay,
see how.
do they turn them off at night or they?
I think it's on. It doesn't bother me.
But again, it isn't,
They're shining onto the thing, the whole sign isn't illuminating. The spotlights are shining onto the thing. So I think it's gonna be a different case
Right.
scenario if they're,
you
It's gonna be
know,
worse.
if you look in one of these reports, and I'm not sure which one, there's a sample. And it shows how the illumination, interior illumination of a sign, like 6 times greater than a sign that's
Illuminating outside.
illuminated from the outside. So.
But you know, when there were fluorescents in the back, you can't control it, but with these electronic boards, you can't,
LEDs,
LEDs, you can't control how bright they are.
There's no lighting behind that, and it's all facing now.
Right. So that's one thing that is a drawback, but if they've got a show that they don't have shows that start at 11 o'clock at night. So if the show is going on and you're inside and you come out and the sign is off at 9 o'clock, so what?
yeah, nobody
Well,
cares.
The people are already there.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. Well, if it was an electronic board that could change, it would be talking about the next sign, next show.
The Center for the Arts asked for one of these,
yes, well,
the Legion, we just talked about the Legion one, didn't we? I didn't know the center had asked.
you at the ZBA talked about the Legion, we didn't talk about it here.
All right.
We kicked that over to the Legion, and in the same way with the one for family health, that went to ZBA. Because we have
talked
not,
about that one.
yeah, because we have nothing in the code. So it
Correct.
had to go to ZBA. Now we're trying to get a
Establish
code
code.
that, so that it would not go to, in fact, in here, there's a, ZBA has no jurisdiction regarding.
Yeah, no,
Does anybody know,
I got a
does
question.
anybody know
about
what,
that.
yeah, does anybody know what the rationale is for it?
Yeah,
The Legions was denied.
What's that?
The sign for the American Legion was denied.
until we had the law.
Right.
Right, so what's the rationale, you know what the rationale is in here?
For not allowing variance?
Not letting, taking this, the right to review these things the ZBA and giving it to the
Well,
village.
under the ZBA, it's all exceptions, right? So it's exceptions to the rules. I think the idea was to get a,
It was denied on the 27th of October. Area variance for proposed new programmable sign denied.
right. So, but the idea was to have a
A law
strict rules, people
established.
go, they have to
Yeah,
conform to,
there
they
wasn't
come, they
gonna
bring
be-
the site plan to the
Yeah,
planning board, and it either adheres or it doesn't.
right,
Right.
yeah, but when you start getting into variances, it becomes very subjective and not objective. And even though the criteria for a variance is pretty tight, it seems like a lot of them are given out like Halloween candy.
Yeah.
Does McLean have one of these LED signs that they're fire? What's, has anybody seen that?
I have.
Yeah, yeah, Cortlandville has one. in their village.
It's
I
obnoxious.
don't think,
I'm sorry, I didn't.
I think maybe the McLean
And that's,
and the
I mean,
And the Cortlandville ones are maybe older technology or larger LEDs in them. They don't have this seems to be
High resolution. So this is
this is a 6 millimeter.
6 millimeter, and the one on the green here, the green, he guesses 50 millimeter.
Right.
It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
And now, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's actually not a good service to the public, because the resolution is so hard, and as soon as you are at an angle, you can't even read what it says on there. I looked at it many times, so you're much better off with a high
Which
resolution.
is what I was looking at, this one, that we could read it from all angles.
Angles like that.
The Living History Center's got a changeable one that scrolls. It's below their big panel. And again, it's, you know, 4 lights to the inch, I would call it, you know.
I don't
This is like 20 lights. to the
Right, I don't
inch.
think it's scrolling
And
thing.
you don't get it's like looking at pixels in a picture on a computer screen, a high res screen versus just a plain old television screen. This unit that we saw tonight does look a lot.
Like a painted sign.
Yes, another problem that I see with these is that I'm jumping over to billboards now, but the people are designing signs and they have no concept of what they're doing. They're putting pink lettering on a white background. You can't read it, you know, it looks nice on the screen in front of them. You project it, I don't know. So there's a lot that we can't legislate.
Well, in my thinking is that you have this, first of all, very static signs, no scrolling,
Right.
30 seconds or more. And you have control the palette, and you can control it, 2 colors. And pink is not one of them. You know, it's black, it's gray, it's parchment, masking tape like. Maybe we allow a blue, I don't know.
And am I also just reading this? So if I'm reading this correctly, I could have it on an awning, I can have it subject to a roof line. I don't.
No, wait.
no,
That's
those are different
no.
types of
I
signs.
wouldn't see that.
But
That's
it's just like
different.
the lowest point of the roof or the roof
No,
projection.
those are the definitions
So,
of
okay,
what's
so-
in the law.
I want him to have a marquee is what I'm saying.
Right. We can't-
Okay.
Definitions,
All right.
an A-frame sign, an animated
Oh, okay,
sign,
all right, I was like.
attached sign, awning sign, no, those are. So when
It just
if you
has
see
to be
that,
on the ground.
if you see awning sign in here someplace,
Okay,
that is described.
It says here, I mean, like, there are prohibitions, so no sign shall be placed on the roof or roof.
yeah, I saw that part, but I didn't know if they're,
No banner, poster, pennants, ribbons, streamers, spinners, we've got banners. And the village already.
Those.
So I think, I call it page 6, it's F, electronic message sign, LED message signs, electronic message sign. Specific requirements, one is permitted zones of use, it says B1 and B2. And it says, and churches, schools. In other zones, that means you could have a church one in a residential thing, like the intermediate school room, there's houses all around it. That's already, that would be allowed here. And I would add, by the way, that nonprofit institutions like the Center for the Arts. And then two is where, is what can be on it, which you said something, it's freedom of speech, but it's actually limited here. Information displayed on electronic message sign shall be related to the property in which the sign is installed. Information not pertaining to the property on which the sign is located would constitute an off-site sign. There's a whole section of fuel signs. They're smaller, I think, and we have different parameters. Then they have the section on operation of the time thing, which is, you know, says 10 to 6 is prohibited for these electronic ones. So if you have, right now, if you have a static one like the American Legion, you can keep it on all night. So that has to be looked at. And it's prohibited animation, flashing, or video. No audio. And then it's the area, which is 12 square feet on each side. If you have a two-sided one, it's 24 square feet.
I would love audio. Oh, I love it. If I can control it in my house. Park on my lawn.
You wanna, yeah, particularly, thing you wanna make, to put into the recommendations?
No, I think you guys are on, have a good discussion. Go in here and you
Okay.
can all hash it out. I'll keep my name off it.
Paula
No, I think, yes,
or Jessica,
yes,
are you leaving or you're not feeling well?
I have to leave. I have, my daughter's got basketball until 7:45 and I.
Okay.
Girl. You guys have fun. I'm sure we'll be talking about this. Again.
Ad infinitum.
It's not gonna be the end. Have a good night, everyone.
So is the sign, where's, that was just codified, this is in addition to the signage limitations for on your building. They're required, your building is only allowed to have so much signage.
Right.
So does it say someplace this is in addition to that, or does it come out of that?
I don't know off the top of my head, so I've read it a few times, but it's been a bit.
That's
But
what
that
I'm
may be
concerned about.
Sure.
I mean, I think it's intended to be in addition, but it should be clarified somewhere.
Dante,
Yes, I'm here.
okay, Mike has a question.
Yeah, these are regulations specifically aimed at, you know, new, but because there's no existing ones, all LED signs, proposals in the village. So they only pertain to, and if you look at the definition section, it's clarified in there or limited to the types of signs in the first article.
But if we're allowed 48 square feet of signage in a B2 district, and I think it's based on the frontage, 2 square feet for every linear foot of frontage, building frontage.
Yeah, there are specific requirements already, but as you guys know, there's probably like 25 pages of code about the types and allowed uses of signage already. So, some are based on square footage, some have just delineated, you know, 2x3 signs are allowed here in certain areas. Not all of them are like that.
We're mentioning that this law would have to point out that this is in addition to those building signs. Not part of it, the square footage, or it is part of it. Right?
Are you saying, can you have an LED sign that conforms to these regulations and then also apply for another sign?
Yeah,
No, this would be, you know, inclusive. The sign regulations are not going away, you know, the specific sign requirements and regulations already in place.
Right, so this would be an additional sign that a business can have.
No, they would still have to conform to the sign requirements in that specific area for that specific business.
So somebody like the Family Home Network there, who already has uses the maximum amount of signage that they are allowed to that building, couldn't have an EMC, an electronic messaging center board. Is that right? What you're saying?
Right, you know, they'd have to conform to the maximum allowed if they wanted to use the maximum allowed signage. This wouldn't allow them to get another free LED sign in that area.
Well, I didn't, right. Huh,
So let's, for example, just to pick on it, family health,
Yeah, no, this is a great question.
they've got probably 150 to 200 square feet of signage. They got it on two sides of the building.
Yeah, I'm not specifically, yeah, I should probably look it up for this discussion. I don't have the exact sign footage.
So if they, you know, and if they've already got,
I don't know what they're allowed specifically, but I think that would be helpful to have for this.
To be focused on our recommendations, Joan, if you want to take one down, at least from me personally, I don't know if everybody supports it, but that's what this discussion is going on. The village board has to look to see whether these EMCs are in addition to the signage.
Hold on a minute, EMC,
electronic message,
Center.
EMC.
That's what this is referring them to. There's also called EMSs, electronic messaging sign. So we'll just use theirs because that's what they gave us right there. It's EMCs, electronic messaging
center.
center.
I got look to see,
The village board needs to look to see whether their intention is that these are in addition to the restrictions for signage per building, or this is included into the square footage that's allowable per building.
My personal feeling is that it should be included in what the maximum allowable.
You heard Dan? Personal opinion. But by the way, that's, if somebody has an A-frame downtown or anywhere, which is, according to that, would be that comes out of their square footage for the building.
Yeah, and that's how the existing law is, and this is how it would fit in it as well. Just to point out a couple of things because they came up during discussion. There is already a sign a rule that deals with how often signs can be illuminated, and there's a specific time frame. It's from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. as far as illumination is already allowed. I'm just trying to go back there because I was at the B2 district signs and I think we should have that. So no, it reads no illuminated sign located on a lot adjacent to or across the street from any residential district shall be illuminated between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 p.m.
7 a.m.
Okay.
I think they mean 7 a.m., but it is written as p.m. So that's something. Unless the use to which the sign pertains is open for business. So, you know, if eventually these signs are allowed, potentially we should clarify that if that's something that you guys want to.
I would agree with that, yes. But that, the hours of operation should be looked at.
Because that would allow them, you know, if the business was open to have their sign also illuminated. Which I know wasn't exactly your question, but I did, when I was looking for the B2 district signs, I saw that there, and I know you guys were talking about it for a while. So there are specific signs, and in the B2 district, I can give you the it's
Okay, so
structural sign. So yeah, in the structural sign, it does have a maximum square footage, 3 square feet per linear foot of building frontage. So that one is particularly for the B2 district. I could look up the B1 district, but it doesn't allow like an extra free sign just because it is an LED sign. They would still have that requirement. So they would have to potentially replace a sign if they were at that capacity or near that capacity, and this would put them over. But that's a very important point. I'm glad we spoke about it.
I think that Joan, this is a recommendation for me. I think that the height of the sign needs to be regulated. It's as I read it, it has to start at no lower than 12 inches off the ground. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
It's not no
so
lower.
12 inches up.
Right. And so therefore the height could be a total height of 4 feet, maybe.
Mike, before that one, did you say that you were recommending that the sign be illuminated only during hours of operation?
No, I said it has to be looked into the whole question of hours of operation.
So that's not a recommendation that they look into that?
My recommendation is that they look into the appropriate hours of operation of these signs.
Yeah,
I mean, it says here, it says that they have to be shut down between 9 PM and 6 AM. And I think Dante just pointed out that signs can have to be shut down between 11 and 7. Is that what you said, Dante?
Yeah, that pertains to illuminated signs. Obviously, we don't
Right.
have anything about LEDs. And
Right.
it does say 11 and 7 PM, but obviously,
Right, so
Something
so
we
the
should-
recommendation is that it's coordinated. I mean, I don't see why an illuminated sign has one regulation and these have another one. So this should be, the illumination should be a standard kind of recommendation.
one other recommendation I heard before was that you should have a restricted palette.
Restricted what?
Palette,
Oh, yes, I big on that. I actually would make the recommendation that this EMCs are only acceptable in the village of Homer. It could be dependent on the district, like in the CBD and the historic district, in residential areas, as opposed to 281. So this is a little getting complicated. There could be a recommendation that, and it's a separate recommendation, that separate districts are created for these EMCs if it goes ahead at all. So 281 could be treated in one way. Residential, things that apply in any location in a residential area is another one. So districts should be looked into for CMCs. And then getting back to the one you asked me about, Joan, I say that
about the palette,
yeah.
that you should go with a restricted palette.
My opinion personally is that if it's in a historic district, it's in a residential area, it's in this, it's that, most anywhere other than 281, it would have, the palette has to be restricted to, use of 2 colors within a black, gray, and, some pastel color that would be codified. And by the way, another recommendation I have is that before that makes any approval and public hearing, such a thing would be mocked up. That they would request that such a mock-up is made of this, so that people can visualize this. So I can convince you.
You're not gonna be able to do that.
I've known her for a long time, you're a visitor of any. I will say that I disagree with you on the pallets on 281.
Yeah, it
There's
should be
people
like
who live
me.
over there too. There's
Should be.
people who live over there, they don't want to see, Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Okay, yeah, okay,
Making it
so
that
John, let's revise that, to the palette thing would be a recommendation by this board to apply to the entire village, it's limited palette.
And I did just check, and the rules that with the church, that sign goes off at 9 PM and it does not get turned back on until 6. It's on the timer. I just checked that situation.
I think they made some board to give us.
So,
to let it go-
And I
let it go
understand
in.
that that was a different time, it
Yeah.
was whatever, but I will tell you that I lived through it and it divided this village, it divided that church. And
Right.
it's 2 lines that you can't
Right.
even say Holiday and Homer on it.
Right.
So, because there's not enough word,
Right.
there's not enough letters, so I'm just saying that
It would be
that
better.
little tiny thing divided everybody
well-
into groups and tribes and
Right.
everything else.
Right,
And
it might happen here too,
so I'm just saying that,
and I'm
Yikes.
trying to avoid that by
I know.
having a sign that I have in mind that wouldn't be upsetting to everybody, but I don't know, maybe it will. It'd be better than what you have there now, you could be, when I'm, because the resolution would be better, you'd be able to read it as you go by, and
Yeah, but I don't think our church has $40,000 to buy one.
Well, then that's gonna keep.
Oh, so
that's between that-
I don't know that, but that's.
I guess it's between that
That's gonna
and
keep the
Jesus.
proliferation down
Yeah,
right
they're
there.
pricey.
Yeah,
What is it?
I work in my favor.
I believe they're paying 40 for that one at the health center.
we're going to, yeah. They wanted a big one. That was gonna be,
That was a big tone.
yeah, there's a big, tall, was it tall? Yeah, that's a big deal. And that probably includes the
I don't think-
foundation and they probably.
Yeah,
So this is
so-
gonna go to the public, right?
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
I think the public and.
I think they should have a
Around
standard.
there.
Yeah, the one, yeah,
Okay.
once the, if,
I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty about it. I'm just saying that if you live in the middle of this and you already are dealing with all these other frustrations of traffic and you
People
can't get
bring
out of
their
your own
issues.
driveway, you can't get off your street. And now you want to have a, some sign that's, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just
You
saying.
have to look at it to see if you live with it, or it's an improvement. I think it's an improvement.
yeah, the,
I tend to agree with the improvement too, but I understand where you're
Yeah,
coming
of course,
from.
right.
You're gonna be right there with the signs.
Yeah, if I gotta, basically sleep next
I
to it
don't
every
think
night.
anybody's looking to go with anything great big. I mean, the fire department's not looking to go anything great big either, we just want an electronic sign that lights up, that's all.
yeah, the-
So tonight, we're not voting.
Oh, no, it's just a recommendation.
Tossing it up.
Telling you,
What your recommendation?
telling
The
the
village
voters.
board is board of trustees, but they would entertain comments and,
Got it.
critiques
Yeah.
from both
There's
boards.
other ways.
Like it's a 48 inch maximum height.
Does it say that?
Yeah, and that, I know that sign at the Legion is 6 foot tall.
Right.
That thing's pretty bright right now. I mean, that thing
Yeah,
is
yeah,
pretty
well,
bright when
it's-
you come off of Hannah Man.
Lit up white and then of course
Yeah.
they have the black lettering.
Where's the foundation? So we start with that. 12 inches. off the ground?
This sign area.
I thought it was 12 inches off the ground.
12 inches off the ground, that's what it said, and then 48 inches. next.
40 is right on the front page. A-frame sign.
No.
Oh, that's
Go
the
back.
definition.
They're only.
I know, I keep doing that too, so.
So Dan, what is the reason to give us all these other definitions
Freestanding sign
in
area.
here? I mean, are there changes in them or?
No, changing definitions shouldn't have any changes.
No, should,
no,
except that maybe you added the EMC one, right?
right.
yeah, those definitions,
Yeah, there's an electronic messaging sign. I mean, that would be we should actually, first of all, since you use that term, call them EMCs, EMSs. But that would have been a thing too, and then you got electronic static fuel pricing sign. Those are additions to the,
There'd be additions to, yeah.
those are additions. But if I look at, and it's actually electronic display screen too, and the word dissolve, those are all new. Right? But awning sign, for example, is this ours or this is the Baldwinsville one?
that's where, this was taken from Baldwinsville, I believe.
Dante may have put some of the language from ours already. So,
Dante, these definitions are they?
Definition was borrowed from the Baldwinsville Code. That law is probably like 90% of what the Baldwinsville.
Okay,
LED
so it has to be merged with ours, like if we have a statement of what an A-frame is now, you would bring it, you would make a new thing for us, right, a proposal, right? If they were saying.
This is a good discussion point, a good starting off point, because it's hard to start anywhere. So it's kind of easy to have a little bit of a framework and subtract and add as needed instead of.
The working document like that, and you do know that it has a reference to Baldwinsville twice, and it has a reference to
It does, yep,
an architectural design committee too, which we don't have.
which we don't have, and a couple of other provisions that only pertain to their municipality, correct?
Okay, so just, so the definitions are somewhat like ours now
But
and,
where in here,
okay.
I looked through here, I don't see where it says the base of the sign.
You're right. I don't know where, I don't know where to get that. I do have in here, no height limitation, so exceptions, no. That says state fuel pricing signs will be allowed only at refueling stations.
Oh, I see, freestanding sign.
Freestanding sign area, 12,
It's
1
on
foot,
the
12
second
inches
page,
from grade.
the third page of the second sheet, page 3. Freestanding sign,
It's on the definitions or?
yeah, in the definitions, a freestanding sign. exclusive to the foundation within 1 foot
Sign area.
inches, 12 inches from grade.
Oh,
Calculated.
yeah, that's where I got it, yeah.
Well,
So it
exclusive
does not
to the
indicate-
foundation, but that doesn't tell us, it doesn't tell us what the overall height is.
That's
And,
correct.
and you can, and if you go into one of the recommended heights, the USSC, they've got some recommended heights for freestanding signs. And some illustrations. I'm not saying they're not necessarily God, but
So some of those are posts and big deals like that, right?
yeah, but then there's one in here with a monument sign, 6 foot maximum height.
Yeah, so our recommendation is that this height restrictions has to be codified and.
Right. Right.
I don't know, if yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
we even
definitely need
allow,
something on
what do they call a monument sign, like, something that's got.
Well, like what the church has, that's a
Yeah,
monument
and the alternative is a pedestal type thing,
Yeah.
or something on,
Yeah.
on stage.
and a post.
So we gonna allow those?
I don't think we're. You might want to allow something like that on 281, if you got a large business district.
Okay.
Where traffic. Traffic is 35 miles an hour on 281. And with that, you would want to look at some of the standards, what they're saying, how long you have to be able to see this. If you're going down 281 at 35 miles an hour, and all you got is a monument sign, you're gonna be past the place if you're behind a tractor trailer.
So I think, Joan, one of our recommendations is that this thing has to be thought through thoroughly. That there's so many things that are up in the air if they want to pursue it. One of them is districts. Things might be appropriate in some districts, but not other. 281 might be a district, even if we think that we recommend that the palette is really subdued across the board. There still might be pedestal signs allowed in 281, but not downtown or in the historic district. That's like an example of how to look at this thing in a very refined way. Now, I have a very specific other one, like on the line that says it's okay for schools and churches. They should add to it nonprofit institutions, as is recommended in a comprehensive plan, I believe. There's a section in the comprehensive plan that talks about spelling out, I think, codifying specifically those institutions. It's like some section I saw today. So they could this law could actually say these are the institutions that this, or I mean, it's a category. I mean, the category would be schools, churches, and nonprofits, I think. So that's a recommendation to look at that. Are you getting all this, Joan?
It's difficult. I'm gonna have to go back and listen to what's recorded. I might ask your help tomorrow, Mike,
Okay. What is it?
if you love me.
Yeah, it's totally fine. It's just, sorry about it. It's done some homework and then it's just flowing here, taking bits and pieces from everybody.
There's a lot of stuff that,
Yeah,
if you look at what was proposed, it looks pretty good, then you start thinking about it and, again,
Good proposal.
we have pedestal signs in the B2 district.
Yeah.
And in the ID. Complete Construction's got a pedestal sign.
yeah,
Little Italy's got one.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know if Welder's Warehouse, but they're in Welder's Warehouse in a different district.
I mean, so you're saying we already allow pedestal signs in the village.
Yeah.
So now you can replace that sign with an electronic one, up to 12
12
square feet.
feet per side.
Right, and that might be smaller than what they have now.
Well, like Times Square.
Well, again,
That's
it
only
isn't
because of
so
the color.
much the sign itself, it's how you treat how you manage it.
How do you design it?
You can. Let's just, for argument's sake, say that you you want to have a sign painted or made for the front of your building, it's gonna cost you $5,000.
Mhm.
You can go buy an electronic one.
For 40,000.
Well, maybe, maybe not. You know.
You're not selling me.
No, you can buy it, but you're stuck with what you've got painted. Now, let's say you decide you want to change your logo or something. With the EMCs, you can change it without climbing up on a ladder or getting a bucket truck in. You can change it from the ground. It's kind of like, going from Model T to a Mustang.
I think the biggest problem, you hear him talking and you think of these Times Square signs. What makes it a Times Square sign is the garishness of the colors, the neon
animation.
quality.
But you're gonna want it Center for the Arts, one at
Well,
the
proliferation is a problem.
Legion, one at the firehouse. I mean, it's
But
gonna
you have them
be.
there- you have them there now.
Car accident.
I know.
The signs.
But they're not changing like that. You look at the signs now, you can do the same thing. They're not
Yeah.
catching any more of your attention.
I think you're just creating more problems.
Unless they were garish, you're not,
You know,
in your face in colors, they're not going to,
they're pretty much a static message. The idea that Mike has been proposing is that, you know, the code may say they can't change more than every 10 seconds or something. But we can, we've had discussions, I have had with the mayor of no more frequently than 15 minutes. So that, let's say Center for the Arts has a sign up there and it says, you know, Judy Collins is gonna be here the 29th, and it's up there for 15 minutes, and then it changes and says, the next show is whatever. And it's so it's not implying action anymore. It's just that it makes it easier for them to change their message. Now, again, go back and look at what interior lit signs, how much they throw out as opposed to a sign with lights shining on it. There's a big difference with an interior lit sign, whether it's the Legion sign or the old fire department sign that doesn't work anymore with lights inside of it.
those are brighter than these EMCs.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be regulated.
But those things, I'm not a big advocate of this stuff, but I'm also advocating that there's technology available. Are we going to hamper, you know, we want businesses to come to the village, we want people to come to the village.
They'll come.
But I also, you know, we've got organizations that want to, that do a lot of good for the village, whether it's the churches, Legion, fire department. And if we let them have them set up so that they can build I don't care if you want to call it a brick monument or a wood frame structure with the light box in it. And it isn't garish. It doesn't have to look like Times Square.
Mhm.
Times Square, most of that is animation. Whatever you see on TV, it's the animation.
Those are the brightness of-
Las Vegas it's all about animation. And I think that, you know, if you were to have your store, let's say your store was down on South Main Street. You'd probably like to have one of these signs.
No, I wouldn't.
Because if you have a sale coming up,
Then I would be using other marketing tools. I'd be using social media. I'd be doing there's other ways to promote yourself. We know that there's a chicken barbecue where you can smell it. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm just saying, there's other ways to
But-
promote
but
the good and what's going on. Like Judy Collins is coming, because I'm a big supporter of the Center for the Arts. I don't think we need a tacky sign out
No,
front
I don't want that.
with fireworks displays.
No,
No, but
No, it's the animation.
so you're gonna babysit everybody who owns the sign?
Yeah, I think Kevin can do that. I mean, if it's within a palette codified that it's
Or is it
30
limited?
minutes or whatever it is. Or 30 cents, whatever it is. And it's within a palette of a number of colors and the illumination. I think it's very easy for Kevin to say, that's not within the bounds here.
Yeah.
And send them a fine.
Turns the power off. You know, that's. It's easier to turn the power off on a sign than it is to get a sign company come and take it down.
I'm not buying it.
I know you're not, and I'm not trying to sell it to
Yeah.
you.
I
I,
am.
you know, and again,
They're losing the whole historic, like,
No, you
feel.
don't.
We certainly are.
So first of all, you already have signs that are tacky. Center for the Arts, which I designed in the retrospect, not retrospect, was the only thing we could do.
I
Is
don't think it's
tacky.
tacky.
I think it's yellow, was yellow, and black letters. I mean, it's nothing exciting about that. I mean, there's something high quality about it. The fire department kind of sign was a commercial sign that your nice village had for 40 years. That kind of thing with the legs that stick up and the white panel with the black letters, they're all falling off and all different. That's what this his wonderful place of being facetious was and has been. And then the American Legion one is nothing great about that either. It's a big white sign. It's the most commercial looking thing in the world. It's Reno. You know, Route 99, US, whatever it is. And what is it called? The highway.
Route 66.
I mean, it's as tacky as it comes. Frankly, and I'm not gonna use it, this is the whole thing, it's both sides of the, so that's what you're gonna stick with.
What the department
That's
could
what you're
afford
gonna
out of
stick with,
their
tell
own.
your proponents or your opposition to be, that's what we're gonna keep if we don't do something better. And I can see electronic boards being designed better. Calm,
Absolutely.
quiet.
I was impressed with that one. It was calm, quiet.
Which one?
The one that he had.
Oh, I can't go with that. Oh, which one, when the letters were on it, or when he had this?
I like letters.
Well, yeah, but, right. But not that first one that was on the truck there.
What was that, Mike?
No, it's the first one, the last.
So we're not
one.
voting tonight.
No, we're not. No, it's talk about with your constituent.
Well, we know where you stand, Dan. Yes, I got a business to run tomorrow. so-
Can't vote till they pass it.
Okay.
Yes.
Night, Ashley.
Bye, darling. See you soon, darling. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Excitement in the background.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't need all that in the background.
Right, the whole picture.
We're gonna wrap it up.
Is that your rabbit?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Joan, I think we're gonna call it a night. Joan.
Okay,
So, yeah, you sound excited, Joan.
I am not.
A little more enthusiasm about shutting this thing down. Okay.
Okay, good night, everybody.